pleasing others, it's time to shift. My name is Amy Ballantyne. Welcome to Power to the People Pleasers. I'm so excited to have my guest Christina here. Welcome, Christina.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I love the whole topic of this. It's like my life story.
Well,
So,
let's jump right into that, my friend. Every time I start a podcast, I always ask my guests, have you ever been a people pleaser? And if so, how did that show up in your life? So I'd love if you could share, please.
I think it'd be so interesting to find a woman who hasn't been a people pleaser. I mean, I'm sure that many men suffer from this too. So it's not just a woman's problem by far. But yes, one of the major shifts in my life came from realizing that I had spent my life really being a people pleaser. And so when I was young, my mom gave me a list of things that were like, what you'll be happy when. You'll be happy when you get good grades, when you go to college, when you get the job, when you get the promotion, when you can buy a house, when you can have a family, and I checked all these boxes by the time I was in my mid 30s. And I had never been more miserable in my life. I was depressed, which comes and goes in my life, but it was probably one of the most depressed I had ever been. And it got even worse because I would shame myself and be like, Christina, you should be grateful. How can you not be happy? Because, you've done the things that you were supposed to do. Your life is better than it was, when you were a kid. So why are you not happy? And I used to get so angry about that. But what I realized was I was living my mom's ideal life. Like I lived a life that she thought would have made her happy. If she could have gone to college right out of high school, that she thought would make her happy. She would have a better job. Her life would be better set up. And so, and I don't blame her. I mean, she was doing the best that she could, which was thinking, I want my daughter to have this life that feels better than the one that I have. And it certainly didn't. And that's because I was living someone else's dreams. Like I had never really, and I was a smart girl, so I thought I was being independent. I did all the things on my own. I'm independent. And yet I didn't realize how much other people's opinions and thoughts really swayed how I believed in life. And even though I was thought I was such an independent thinker, what I was thinking was just a reflection of the things that other people were expecting from me. And it was so frustrating. And it really showed up in my first marriage because when one is a people pleaser, at least in my life, how it showed up was in my first marriage, I did all the right things for my husband, and then I would get resentful that I wasn't getting what I wanted. And people pleasers do that. They're like, there's like this unwritten contract that says, if I do all the things to please you, then you should do all the things to please me. The problem is with an unwritten contract is if it's not expressed, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And even in my second marriage, what I learned was it was so much easier to please myself and ask for what I needed than to constantly go around like how and try to assume what would make my son happy, what would make my husband happy, what would make my mom happy. And I often got it wrong because I don't know what they need. But it was like this cycle that I was stuck in. And then, I was one of those women that go, oh, nobody's there when I need them. And it's like, well, they are, but we don't want to ask for what we want because that is like the anti-people pleaser, right? It's like, now I'm inconveniencing you with something rather than helping you with something. And two, I know one of my things is when I'm feeling in my wounded child, I almost want to go help somebody else and please someone else because it's easier to get into their stuff and try to make them happy than it is to actually just deal with my own depression, my own thing that's going on. And so even though we act like people pleasing is a martyrdom kind of sport, it really is about me avoiding my own stuff most of the time. So that was a lot, but those are all the things that I really learned in my mid 30s about people pleasing. And I'd love to say that, as soon as I learned that I was a people pleaser, I no longer did that. But it's, of course, a process. And of
I
course,
wish.
still times today where like I feel that inner conflict of like I really want to do this for them, even though I know it's going to be a detriment to my life to help them, or at least in this moment to help them do that.
Mhm. I appreciate you so much. I'm also a recovering people pleaser, and it creeps in here and there, right? So even
Mm,
though I've been talking about this for some time now, it's still a journey. We're all on a journey, and you dropped so many incredible nuggets there that I want to just highlight before I share all of your awesomeness. Um, the reflection, your opinions and thoughts, a reflection of what others were expecting. So powerful. The message of you will be happy when. That is so interesting that you brought that up. And the reality of us, some of us having this situation of unmet expectations. But if we're not sharing what we need,
mm,
we're not setting anybody up for success there, ourselves or the people around us, right? So I appreciate all of those nuggets that you shared at the beginning. And I wanted to let our listeners know a little bit about you being a life coach
mm,
specializing in confidence and self love in midlife so that women can finally truly like themselves and show up for themselves in their relationships.
mm,
And she's moved through some pretty tough transitions in her life, and talks about this in her book Inviting Shift. So I'll be sure to link that in our show notes for people who want to check out that book. And Christina's focus is on helping women to empower themselves so that they can make their second half the best half by dropping the people pleasing and perfection and stepping into desire, authenticity, and joy. So, so excited for you to be here today. And I'd love to continue this discussion. For those who were intrigued by the title of, this feeling emptiness, even feeling unhappy while we're in this state of trying to please everyone else. What is it that you share with your clients when they're like, they've raised their hand, they say, okay, I
mm.
want this next phase of my life to be the best. Where do you start when you're like, classic people pleaser right here? Where do you start?
Yeah. And it usually starts with they don't say that they want to give up their people pleasing. What they say is like, I want to feel good about the decisions I make and I want to be able to make them on my own terms and these types of things. But they don't realize that the conflict that's within them is that, many of us were taught and trained to be people pleasers. I mean, I saw it just over the last summer. I was camping, and in the next tent was this dad and this little girl. She must have been 3 or 4 years old. And he said, I love you and you're a good girl. And what does good girl mean other than you're showing up the way I expect you to? You're doing what I want you to do. And you're a bad girl when you don't show up the way that I expect you to. And although I know, because I did it myself, right? Good boy,
Yeah.
good girl. I know that parents don't mean to do that, but there is this message that is being taught that you're only good if you show up as other people expect you to. And
Mhm.
the other piece was as I was growing up, my mother, maybe this was a Gen X thing, because I know a lot of my clients' parents said the same thing, was like, what will other people think?
Oh, yes. I heard that one all the time.
What will other people think? Right.
Yeah.
And it's not
Mhm.
even like, and at that moment, it's not even like, it's not what will other people think of you? It's really what will other people think of me as your mother
A
allowing
reflection.
you to show up this way.
Yeah.
Right. And so we start thinking that it's really important to please other people,
Mhm.
not just, golden rule, don't do things to people that you don't want done to you, but like really showing up. And I moved a lot in my high school years. And so it was like every high school I went to, there was a different group of people that let me in, right? Because it was very cliquey back then. And so, like in one high school, I had heavy metal friends, and I did all of the things that they did. In another school, I had athletic friends, and I did
Mhm.
all the things that they did, right? And so, for me, being a people pleaser when I was young was really a safety issue.
Mhm.
I wanted to be in a group, and it was safer to be in a group than be on your own. And so my people pleasing came out as like I was a chameleon, basically. Like I'll go anywhere as long as there's safety and like cover. Right. And so a lot of us start off that way as you know, we think it's a good thing. And I mean, we do it out of the goodness of our hearts too. Like it's not like we have negative intentions. However, then we wonder around midlife or sometimes earlier, and we start thinking like, why am I not getting what I want? Why am I always like giving and giving? And this is like the ultimate mother, grandmother kind of archetype, right? Is that they no longer have their own identity. Their identity is basically giving to everyone around them. And I think that sets us up for generation of generation of generation of, I see my mother martyr, so I think that that's the right way to do it. And so that's what I teach my kids, you know what I mean? And not even that I'm trying to teach it to them, but we're modeling it for them.
Yeah.
So giving up people pleasing, what it looks like when they come to me is like, I hate it that my sister always wants me to do this and she expects me to do this. And well, of course she does, because that's how you've always shown up. And the hard part about not being a people pleaser is holding boundaries. And that is really, really hard for most of us. We don't like to tell people no. We don't want anybody to be upset or inconvenienced on our behalf, because then we feel like a failure as well. And yet we have to understand that sometimes other people aren't going to like the choices that we make for ourselves, and that's okay. They can make their own choices for themselves. And you know, and in that way, it's, you know, there's even the people pleaser in me right now going, that sounds so selfish. That sounds so selfish. But here's the thing. If I focus on me and I know what I need, I can express that to whoever's around me. Hey, this is what I need right now. Doesn't mean I'm always going to get what I want. That's understood. But if I don't even know what I need, how is anybody else supposed to guess what it is that I need? And vice versa. Like there's nothing I hate more than having to sit around. Like gift giving is like the hardest thing for me, because I want them to be so pleased. And all I'm doing is guessing if I don't know the person very well. There's nothing better to me than if somebody could give me a list and go, I would love these things, or I don't want you to buy me things. I'd love you to clean my kitchen. Like I would be so pleased. I think the greatest act of love is being able to ask for exactly what you want. So no one has to do any guessing games. I don't have to like do all these extra things that you don't even care about and then get mad that I did all these extra things and you don't even care about it. Yes. But that's the weird cycle that we put ourselves into when we're people pleasing, right? It's like we don't want them to have to ask. I just want to assume. And maybe that's my restaurant, you know, business for so long, is like you're supposed to, you know ahead of time what your client's going to need. So I did that with a lot of my friends. And a lot of times I got really upset because they weren't impressed with all the backflips and everything I was doing to make them happy. And they're like, I didn't really need that. And I see it with my husband. He used to try doing a bunch of things, and then he would get upset that I wasn't impressed, or because I was like, I didn't want you to fix it. I just wanted you to hear me, you know? And so now we have the communication that I can say to him, hey, I'm about to talk. I don't want advice. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to hear me.
Yeah. I think that's one of my, I mean, you've made so many beautiful points. That's one of my favorite, is being very clear with the expectation that we have of the other person on the other side, and looking and asking for that clarity when we're listening to the other person. Are you looking for me to fix it? Are you looking for guidance? Or are you simply wanting me to be here in this space and let you get this, whatever feeling is, out? I love that.
And so much more simpler. I mean, when I tell my husband I just needed him to hear, he's like, whew, put my hero hat down, right? I can just sit here and just hold space for you. Okay, great. Thank you. Because otherwise he's going to be like, he'll actually, like, I'll be in the middle of talking. He'll get up and go try to, I'm like, what are you doing?
Where are you going? We're not done. I'm not done sharing.
I'm an independent woman, dang it. I can fix my own problems. I just need somebody to hear them first.
Yes. Oh, so powerful. So powerful. And for these people that are feeling emptiness,
Mm,
so I know you work with people in midlife, and you
mhm.
mentioned this having our identity tied into our own experience of motherhood or grandmotherhood. And I'd love to know, okay, so the person is saying, I don't know who I am. What then? What's your
Yeah,
advice to
especially,
them?
and this happens a lot when we empty nest, right? Like,
Mhm.
because a lot of women have seen their whole, or the huge part of their identity all wrapped up into being this great mom, which,
Mhm.
fine, that's great. Um, and when they leave, and it's like, I mean, you're still mom. I'm not trying to take that away, but you don't
Mhm.
have like the full-time parenting kind of deal anymore. And so they start getting lost because they're like, well, what am I here for? Like, even if they worked throughout their children's growing up, they still might be getting bored with their job now. They are starting to wonder, like, who am I? And this is why, the first time somebody asked you in your life was, for me, it was like when I was in my mid 30s, a therapist
Mhm.
asked me, what is it that you actually want? Like,
Mhm.
you yourself, for you, what is it that you want? Not, I want my kids to be healthy. I want my husband to be happy. What do you want for yourself? And
You.
it took me months and months and months to start, like, really uncovering what that was, because I had spent so much time making sure everybody else was getting what they wanted that I didn't really think about, what do I want for me, or what do I want for me so that other people can be proud of me. That
Mhm.
I could answer, right? Or what do I
Mhm.
want for me that other people are expecting,
Yeah.
right? And but to actually answer that question, and that's one of the reasons, is because when we're people pleasers, we've given up so much of our own desire, which is really sad, because, like, desire is the one thing that, it's like the truest part of who we are.
Mhm.
um, I forget who said it, but it's the truest part of who we are, because it's unique for each of us. Like, we all say that we want to be happy and healthy, but what does that actually mean?
Mhm.
There's actually something behind that. My happy is, like, this year, it's like bold and open and love. Those are my intentions. For some of my clients, it's just being at peace,
Mhm.
untamed, um, radiance, all kinds of words like that. So everybody's desire is slightly different. That's why we have vision boards that look a million different
Mhm.
ways, because we all desire different things. And so really getting clear on how we want our life to be, or in my world, we talk about feelings. So how do I want my life to feel?
Mhm.
Bold, open love. Well, then I can start validating these things that come up, right? So if I feel like I have to do something for my mom for her birthday, then I can say, well, I want to show up bold, open, and love. And
Mhm.
this is how I start validating. So even if I do something for my mom on her birthday and she don't appreciate it, she don't like it, it pisses her off, who knows? I can look back and I can say, did I show up bold, open, and with love? Because what I learned about the journey was, I wasn't happy when I checked all those boxes, because if we don't take happy with us, we won't be happy when we get there. I mean, that's just the truth of it. It's like saying, I want to feel like a leader, but then I'm not going to do any leadership stuff or think about my leadership. And then I'm going to show up one day and boom, I'm going to feel like a leader.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. We have to
Yeah.
go through that imposter syndrome. We have to go through that stepping into new shoes and actually feeling that along the way. And so my idea is that if we want to be happy, whatever your happy looks like, bold, open, love is mine this year, then we have to bring that with us. So I need to be bold and open and loving today, not just when I
Mhm.
get to the goal. And how do I bring more of that into my life? And if I showed up that way, I can be proud of myself, even if the goal did not turn out the way that I wanted to.
Mhm.
Because I used to get real mad if, like, the whole goal was perfect, but it showed up with a blue bow instead of a red
Mhm.
bow. And I would be like, I failed. you know?
Yep.
So this is one way that you can start validating yourself rather than seeking that external validation, because that's really what we try to do when we're people pleasers, right? It's like we're
Yeah.
trying to get people to say, yes, you're okay, you're doing it okay, and you're doing all right. And what if we could actually do that for ourselves? Then we can fill up that emptiness with what we actually want rather than the loss of people to caretake. If we truly are a caretaker, that's not a problem. I mean, caretakers are awesome. People pleasing caretakers can be a little iffy, right? Because then they start going into that space. But
Yeah.
caretaking is not a bad thing to have in your skill set, of
Mhm.
course. But I can choose out of my caretaking what is bold, open love caretaking rather than when somebody comes up to me with something that I don't really want to do. I can feel that, right? I can
Mhm.
like, oh,
It's like
that
a
doesn't,
filter, right? It's your
yeah,
filter.
exactly. I can feel that doesn't feel bold, open, or loving. I'm gonna stay away. And that's a no for me,
Yeah.
right? And we forget that one more point I want to make is that sometimes we don't have to be the person that does everything. I sat on a board for a women's organization that I work with, and for 3 years I was doing the job of like 3 or 4 people basically, and I kept staying because I was like, nobody else is going to do this. What's going to
Mhm.
happen if I leave? Who's going to pick all this stuff up? And I got all worried. Then one day I just couldn't. My health just wouldn't let me do it. And sure, for 6 months to a year, they stumbled. They had people come in and out, trying to help. But then within a year, they had this team of beautiful women who did things that I never, ever would have been able to get to on
Mhm.
my own. And so sometimes when we're not people pleasing, maybe that's an opportunity to allow that person to enable themselves and empower themselves, or it might be an opportunity to make space for other people who have even better gifts to
Yes.
provide. So just a thought, a food for thought there.
Mhm. I'm totally with you.
What space can you be opening for other people to
Mhm.
serve? That
Yes.
if we're the person who always does the thing,
Mhm.
there's other people that need to learn how to do that too. What happens when we are gone, right? And so creating that space for people too, I think is really awesome.
Yeah. So beautiful. I completely agree with that point completely. I'd love to know as we near the end of our podcast today, Inviting Shift is your book.
Mm-hmm.
What's a nugget that you haven't already shared in this beautiful
Okay.
message today that you're like, if you could tell us one thing from this book?
Yeah, well, it's really the overall of the book is about how we invite shift. I think so often where I'm a late adopter, I don't like change. I would rather just everything stay the same. That would make it so much easier for me. And especially like when it comes to technology or anything, my husband's an early adopter. Any
Mm.
marketer could sell him anything. Me, I'm like the cynicist. I need to have all the proof and everything. And people like me have a hard time making changes. So the reason I wrote the book was because I became this health coach. And what I realized was I was a health coach, I'm not anymore, but what I realized was everybody knew the answers. Yeah, I got to
Mhm.
drink more water, eat more veggies, get some sleep, get the exercise, right? But they weren't actually doing it. And so I broke down I did all this studying about how we actually make shift happen and how we actually invite it rather than hitting our head on the wall 100 times like I have to do. And it's really just an acronym for the 5 stages of shift. So there's really great tools in each one to help you move through to the next one so that we're not just hopefully being as efficient at shift as possible. I love efficiency,
Mhm.
especially when it makes the pain a little bit less. So that's
Yeah.
really what the Inviting Shift book is about. It's about how do we do that in a really good mentally, spiritually, emotionally good way.
Amazing. I'm so excited. And you also mentioned to me that you have a free midlife confidence toolkit that I will
Yes,
attach below. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
absolutely. And you don't have to be midlife. So if you're a people
Okay, good
pleaser
to know.
or outside of midlife, it doesn't have anything to do with menopause or perimenopause or anything like that. So, but it does have some of the tools, like I was talking about, coming up with your intentions. Mine are bold, open, and love, and ways that we can start self-validating. And there's like 5 lessons in there, very short, very quick, but give you really great points on how you can just start making minor shifts in your life. This isn't about changing your entire routine or anything, but just minor mindset shifts so that you can feel more confident and start doing that self-validation instead of searching for other people to go, yay, you. I think it's really awesome when my clients were like, and then I said to myself, how awesome am I? I'm like,
Yes, I love that.
yes.
I love that too. So great. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast today. I
Thank
want to thank you so
you.
much for being here. And can you share with the people listening where they can find you?
Absolutely. So you can go to christina-smith.com and find me right on my website, or on any of the Instagram, Facebook. Christina Smith XOXO is where you can find me there. I hope that you'll download the Confidence Toolkit. I think it could help anybody get really a little bit more clear and then start self-validating for themselves. So thank you so much for having me on. I love this conversation, and I know that we could talk for probably 2 years about it.
I know. So great. Well, thank you so much. You are a bright light, helping many people, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
And for all of our listeners of Power to the People Pleasers, thank you so much for tuning in yet again, and stay tuned for the next episode coming soon. Have a